We're going to teach you the difference between Surron style and moto style. Hi, I'm Brett Baldwin.
I'm Andrew Davis.
We're going to go over the differences between Surron style and moto style when it comes to cornering.
Not only are we going to put these two head to head, we're going to see the different body positions in the sand and see how the Surron holds up against the dirt bike. Maybe throwing a little lap time on it or something.
Let's give it a go.
Let's get it.
I just wanna have fun, around, I just wanna have fun, around, I just wanna turn up, dance. I just wanna I just wanna have fun, turn around, I just wanna out and turn around, I just wanna turn up, dance. I just wanna
You can do a couple things in this one because it has two like apexes. Like, you know what an apex is? It's like where it hooks you and it's the turning point of the corner to get you to the next section. See how it kind of like turns and then sits up and then hard turn? Because it's so soft, you could probably get away with being a little sloppy in it and like sitting down and going, or you can stand all the way up through the first apex and then sit real hard to the second apex and it launches you out. Does that make sense? Being as soft as it is and kind of rocky, it's a little bit like tough, and naturally it's going to be a little bit sloppier than your traditional corner. I think that one looked pretty good. His elbows were down, but that one looked pretty good. I think the big notice and difference that you're going to see compared to a Surron to this is I feel like that was good. Other than the obvious power being the issue, I think because of the wheelbase and how little those things are and how torquey and how much they dig, you almost have to ride them like a super mini compared to something like this. You want to get more on the like central up front of the bike while you're getting the power to get your aggression. To get your aggression out of a Surron, I feel like you really gotta get like almost on the back of the bike and like dig. Like you see like those fast like super mini riders. Like I remember Adam Cintrello used to do it like when I watched his super mini videos. He was on the back of that thing. Yeah, no, I think that looked really good. I want to see on your entrance, just have like a box more, and don't be afraid to charge and come in a little hotter into that corner. Being sand, it's going to slow you down quite a bit. So I just want to see your entrance, like have your box and then your footwork cleaned up a little bit, right on the balls of your feet and just on the back. And then how you stood up in that first one, that was really good. And then sit and then launch out of it and then immediately set yourself up for this one.
That very last one, it felt pretty good. I stood up, cleared out past that little bump in it, and then just rode it straight out. It felt good. I feel like I want to wash my front end when I do that. Yeah, I think the problem where that's coming from, both looked really good. I think both times though, your elbows were a little bit down. So I want your elbows to be up like a box. So when you're over, you have that elbow up and like this, because the difference between the elbows up and elbows down is, watch this. Let me hop on your bike. So elbows down and you hit a rock. See how it moves your whole body? Yeah. And it moves and you're moving with it. When your elbows are up and you hit a rock, see how your arms like this and your body's center of the gravity the whole time. Center of the motorcycle. No matter what, you're on top. You're not moving with it and throwing you off down. So when you're saying your front end wants to wash, when you're going through it, you're probably like this, and then it forces you to throttle or clutch your way out of trouble. Otherwise, if you don't, you're gonna go down. But if you're up here with it and you're looking ahead and you have your elbows up, you're gonna have more control. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think don't change a thing, just have your elbows up. Okay. Yeah, I'll try. It's a good thing I wore my beach shirt today, dude. We came to the beach.
I figured it was gonna be hot, so it was gonna be good. That was really good. He cleaned it up a lot better that time. He committed, looked where he wanted to go, stood through the first apex, dropped it in, and looked ahead. That was better. It's a good thing it's not rocky, huh? That would suck.
That's a big problem for the Surron. Trying to power your way over that.
The main issue you're gonna see, I don't think is a lot of technique-wise. I think you ride it a lot of the same technique-wise, but just the terrain and the torquiness, you almost had to wind this thing out.
Yeah, so that's a big thing about a Surron in specific is because we are in such thick dirt and sand and it's dry, it's just pure dig at this point.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much wrapped out. So to be able to ride with a wrapped out bike is a difficult technique in and of itself.
Right.
And that just goes to show how deep this stuff is right there.
Notice how Brett really tracks through it because, like I said, box and stand on the balls of your feet, standing through that apex, that first apex, and then really overemphasizing just like launching into it, like get in, get out, and it spits them right out and almost like naturally stands you up. That was clean as
You want one movement from standing in a box. You always want your knees to be behind your toes. You always want your knees to be behind your toes. That way when you're actually standing up, can you hold the bike real quick for me, Andrew? So you always want to be, see how my knees are here? Any movement that I make on the bike is going to be within my hips. I never drop forward unless I'm going into a corner, then it's one essential movement. So you want to be within this box zone. This goes the same for moto. It's all across the board. The advantage a Surron has is I don't have to move my feet. I don't have to shift. I don't have to use my rear brake down there. Everything's up here for me. So I can stay on the balls of my feet throughout the entire motion and never lose my box in my essential zone. I don't have to shift forward with my ankles, nothing. It's just all right there. So what happened right there was there was a rock dead center and she tried to avoid it, and in sand it just buries you. So that's more a trail thing. That's kind of a tough thing to overcome. This corner is shaping up into a double apex. You've got your first apex and then it straightens out just a little bit and then it J-hooks right at the very end. Very common thing throughout most like motocross tracks, most trail rides, a lot of natural thing to happen. You get on the power, it starts to J-hook a rut. So with that being the case, you want to stand all the way through the first apex, and then the J-hook is where you actually want to sit down and get into it initially to be within that weight zone. So in that one, she was sitting down through the first and second apex, which is kind of a tough thing to do. It makes your front end washy when your weight's not kind of over the top of the bike and where it needs to be. So she came into the first one, got washy, and then she caught the J-hook and it looked pretty good from there on out. But that's where you want to sit down, is later in this type of a corner. One thing about Bailey is when she's standing on the bike, she's always naturally in that position of knees behind the ankle or behind the toes, and it kind of creates a nice box for her. So if she can keep that throughout this corner and then sit down at the end, she'll be good to go.
Right now, he's having struggles with keeping your box up, and like I said before, like keeping that box keeps you overall more centrally located and more control. And so a trick I learned, because I had a really hard time when I was first learning to keep my box up too, is wherever you grip, take about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch and over grip it. Just slide your hand forward. And if you ever played racquetball, tennis, whatever, pickleball, you don't hold it, you don't death grip it like this, because if you were doing that, you'd be swinging like this, like a pterodactyl. You kind of grip at an angle so you can flick your wrists and stuff like that when you're playing. It's the same thing. If you watch everybody's hands, it's almost like this versus like this. So when you do that, it naturally has your elbows out. Like watch, let me sit here real quick. So if I'm just regularly holding on and I go to put my elbows up, it looks like a chicken wing, and then I'm overly stressing it. Versus if I over grip and it's more like this, naturally right here, just resting and my elbows are up, correct? And then show incorrect.
So another big thing, that's a huge thing that keeps arm pump away. But in order to be able to loosen your grip, squeezing with your legs is essential, but something that I struggle with all the time, and I'm having to constantly remind myself, is you need to be squeezing your abs just as much as you're squeezing your leg holding onto a bike. That way, it pushes you forward. If you're getting arm pump, it's because you hit the throttle and it's kicking you back, and now you're holding on here. So you gotta be squeezing your abs over the top of the bike at all times. I guarantee if you're getting arm pump, you're not leaning far enough forward. Holy cow.
You're moving. What time? You got 124 and 122.
Okay, 1821, same moto. Setup.
For those of you at home that missed that,
What's that?
was 124 and 122.
You were moving, dude.
I don't know if I can see it or not.
I might not beat that.
That was a 125.45 with a huge mistake in this corner. So I would say if you think Surrons aren't good, man, I mean, that's, I just kind of showed it.
Turn around, I just wanna have fun. Turn around now, turn around now. I just wanna have fun. Turn around now, turn around now. I just wanna.
So basically we kind of covered some key differences between Surron and Moto. They're very, very similar. The major things I want to retouch are on a Surron, all of your controls are in your hands. You don't have to move your feet. You can stay on the balls of your feet at all times. It kind of allows you to keep things a lot better. You want to roll your hands in. That might even mean pull your levers in further on your bars. That way it almost forces you to have your hands not straight, but actually twisted. And at that point, you're going to create a more natural box that allows you to stay good. Core tight, legs tight. Let your upper end kind of just dance with the bike. You don't want to be like sitting here fighting the whole thing the entire time. It creates a lot of problems that way. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, Moto style and Surron style is very similar. I would say for me on that bike, I've got so much torque underneath me that it wants to wheelie a lot easier than a Moto would, whereas a Moto's got a longer wheelbase. So that's one thing where technique is that much more important, because if your bike's trying to get away from you, whereas a Surron's so twitchy and light, if you don't have proper technique, it's gonna leave, you know? Same thing, you look at a 450, you've got so much power underneath you that if you've got improper form, everybody says, you know, you're a wuss if you don't ride a 450. Well, if you don't have proper form on a 450, you're gonna feel like a wuss when you're in the hospital. So keep that all in mind. And yeah, do you have anything to say?
I definitely, the Surron definitely surprised me. I mean, I knew they were quick, but I didn't know I was gonna get my kicked on one. So, no, like a big thing that was crazy to me was like, I was keeping my eye on a section when we were doing some lap times, and every time we would pass, I passed at a 108, and then I ended it with a 124. And when you hit that spot on a Surron, you're at a 114. So either I completely messed that section up, or I think just being as torquey and little as they are and having controls at your fingertips and not by your feet, it definitely, you just get in and out of a corner quick. And then, but I mean, also Isaiah held it down and got a faster lap time than both of us. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a wuss too, but either way, it was cool. I learned a lot more than I thought I would on a Surron, but at the same time, super similar in a weird way. Yeah, I think if you can ride one, you can ride the other. I think the main difference would just be getting used to having your controls by your hands.
Yeah, definitely. And just to retouch on that, the sections where a Surron struggles, we're not really showing it in this video, but there's really long sand straights that are super deep. And the Surron is lighter, it does stay on top better, but when you get into the upper end of a Surron, it kind of struggles. And that's also where you zap your battery, you'll overheat things, just being that wide open. And so that's where I would be a lot slower than a 450, is in those more wide open sections. When you get into tight corners and everything, my bike's so nimble, it's so quick out of corners, it's so light.
I think it zips.
It zips, and you know, coming into corners as well, my stopping zone is way shorter than a 450 would be, or a 250, any dirt bike, just because they're so much heavier. So they have to check up a lot earlier than I do to avoid, you know, especially on a dry day like this, sliding too far into a corner and blowing it over. Whereas I can just kind of keep the power on longer and be able to slow down much quicker. So yeah.
Definitely interested. I think if they ever make a Surron or an e-bike equivalent or better than the 450, like as far as Surron goes, I think e-bike might have it. I don't know. Yeah. That'd be a tough one. That'd be a good next video to do.
As of right now, we'll see where the Stark Bark sits, eh?
I know.
Cool. Thanks for watching, guys. If you got any questions, comment below, please. Kind of blinding out here right now, but I'm going to take you for a lap, just show you the track that we've kind of been working with and how gnarly it is. That way you can see the reasons why our lap time stacked up where they did. So let's go.